puss.
Oh,
Get in.
right. I'll get in. I'm in.
Eyes front.
Listen. Listen.
Oh, okay.
Ah, ça c'est formidable, but I think... Là. Oh, bonjour, please, come in. Welcome. Asseyez-vous. Sit down, please. Là. Le fruit. Ah, inspire. Ah, banana. Magnifique. But I think detail. Detail. Okay, class, please. Changez. Là. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Let me look. Ah. The face, hein? The body. Ooh, the body. The body. The breasts. You must look. Look, the beauty. Feel it. Feel it. And draw. Inspire.
Right. Is he in here, then?
No, you must look.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming, everybody. Before we start learning any throws, etc., first thing about judo is you just got to make sure that you can fall okay. So I'll just check all your break falls one by one. Right? Start with you. Just step forward, that's good. Okay, we start with a bow. Good. Then just take hold there, that's nice. And the throw. That's it. Good one. Back with the others. Right, nice. Next one, please. That's good. Okay, again, you start with the bow. Then take hold. And the throw. That's nice. Good. The others. There we go. Okay, can I have the next one, please? Next one, please. Yeah? So just step forward then. Yeah. Onto the mat, yeah? There we are. Yeah. And the other foot, yeah? That's good. That's all right now. Okay, here we... Just come back onto the mat. There we go. It's all right. Now, first the bow.
So, we bow.
Yeah, all right, and then I take hold. It's all right. Just trust me. Just calm down, all right? Just stand here. That's it. No one's gonna get hurt. That's good. Okay. Now.
So we bow.
Yeah. Just one big bow, then the throw. Okay, so one, then.
Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the demonstration by the Royal Green Jackets of Looks Magnificent machinery, along with some this afternoon.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Wednesday. Wednesday.
For the last time, when I came in here, this was white.
You must have done something to it.
I must have done something to it. Well, let's go and have a look, shall we?
I see. Hang on.
This is your machine, right? So it's your problem. These togs are hock an hour. They cost 200 quid. So what are you going to do about it?
You'll have to fill in a form.
What for?
You better come into the office.
Oi, where are you going?
There you go.
Thanks.
Oi!
Yes! There, stop. Quickly. Stop. Go on. Go.
doing? Pinching my bottom in a hospital queue. I mean,
Good morning. Name, please.
B.
And what seems to be the problem? Have a ticket and take a seat, please, Mr. Bean.
Security to the East door, please. Security to the East door. Dr. Marlowe to obstetrics, please. Dr. Marlowe. Thank you.
24?
Staff announcement. This is a staff announcement. The canteen special carvery offer will be on Friday of this week instead of Thursday. Next week the special will be on Thursday as usual. Thank you.
Fifty-two.
hang on. What about me? Come back here. Hang on.
26.
At last.
Fifty-one.
Is this anybody's? Not too long now, don't you worry.
52.
Over here.
Marlowe, have you got your beeper on?
53.
Dr. Marlowe, have you got your beeper on? Thank you.
You're risking your life, Frankie!
Name?
Bean.
And what is the problem? Take a ticket and have a seat, please.
Good night. Oh, Teddy. Oh, Asterix. Oh, look at the time. Of course. Oh.
There we are, sir. And just have a look.
Yes, that's fine.
Great. Right.
Keep the change.
So, made your mind up yet, sir?
Yeah, so.
Let's just get this on you then, sir. Just a treatment, sir. Just head up a bit, sir. Susie, answer that, will you please, love? Excuse us a minute. Susie!
is at all. Yeah? Yeah, Saturday. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Sorry, look, can I just leave Jamie here with you for a moment? I mean, I've left my purse in the shop back there. But just give him a good haircut, will you? Be good, Jamie. It's a terrible mess.
Walk along.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. Found it. I was really lucky. It's all right. Keep the change. Say thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Hello? Hold it, I can't hear you. Wait a minute. Hi.
Oh, sorry about that. Susie's usually here Tuesdays. 2 minutes.
Morning, Derek.
Good morning. Hello? Yep, I'm on.
Usual, please, Derek.
I was first.
Oh, this is...
Just these split ends at the back and thin it out, would you? Keep change.
Thanks.
What a day.
Thanks, Derek.
Very nice. Roger. Roger!
Right, where is he?
Whoa.
Where is he?
What?
Well, what on earth do you call this? You don't like it.
I do.
Shut up, Jamie. Now look,
What
listen
are
to
you
me.
trying to say?
Where's my
Trying to say
ponytail?
my son looks like an ape.
Look, shout, madam.
Excuse me.
Have you got any
Excuse
idea
me.
how long it took me to grow that?
I've no
Nearly
idea.
2.5 years. And your mate chops it off in less than 2 minutes. Have you seen this? Sir.
Derek, can we just sort this
Yes,
out?
I'm mad. Right,
You're
now what are you going to do?
Your
Somebody in
assistant.
this
Where
What
is
are you
he?
going to
Where
do?
is he?
Derek, whatever your name is.
Welcome
Come by! Come by! Come by! Wait! Ready? Wait! Come by! Sit. Steady. Stop! Stop!
I'll be about an hour. Sort of 3:15. Right?
Would you like to go? Thank you.
Thank you.
you. Well done, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm so sorry, I'm late and I got stuck in the toilet.
Luke. Thank you, Luke. That's a lovely dog. Poppy. Poppy. Lovely dog.
Bean.
And your pet?
Come on. Come on.
One minute, sir. Colonel, could you come here a minute, please?
We really must get on.
Do you think we can allow this?
We really must start. Come on, come on, come on. All right, quiet, please. Quiet. The obedience test.
You sit
Stay. Stay. Stay.
Don't eat the sausage. No, don't eat the sausage. Don't eat the sausage. No, Angus.
done.
I was asked in my first term at Oxford to do a sketch in this one-night show at the Oxford Playhouse. And I'd never written anything, and I'm not really naturally a writer. So I just had to invent a sort of, 5 minutes of something at 48 hours' notice. I just stood in front of the mirror and started to mess about with my face, basically. And this strange, surreal, non-speaking character evolved.
Mr. Bean is the name given to the skin that Rowan can put on to be funny.
You've got a character who is quite intelligent and subversive, but you've also got a character who looks odd and behaves in an odd way and has odd solutions to problems.
He can be pretty mean and actually do some truly unpleasant things.
The story of Bean is inextricably linked with the story of Rowan Atkinson. Although Mr. Bean was only christened in 1989, Rowan has been developing the character for most of his life.
Whenever we try to think of Mr. Bean and how he will react or would react in certain situations that we're thinking of putting him in, I always imagine him as a 9-year-old boy. That's how I always see him. They're sort of anarchists at heart, really, and I think that's what Mr. Bean is. He's an anarchist. He'll obey the rules as long as they suit him.
Rowan Atkinson was educated at Durham Cathedral Choir School. He is still remembered by his old headmaster, Canon Grove.
I had a member of staff named Cyril Watson who produced plays, and one year he chose St. Joan. And it was obviously a spark of genius on his part to see that Rowan was the perfect person for the Dauphin.
It was quite camp. I seem to remember the first and possibly last time I've ever played someone truly camp.
Shaw's own description was that the Dauphin was a pathetic little creature, yet irrepressible, with a cheeky sense of humour, and always liable to get his own way in the end. And that could be a sort of scenario for Mr. Bean.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Pinching my bottom in a hospital queue. I mean,
The first impression he gave was that he was an extremely shy little boy. Though he did say that he had begun his sort of career by being taken by the boys down into the change room and asked to make funny faces for them.
I seem to remember standing up in the changing rooms when I was 10 or 11 or something and putting on a performance.
Ainsley, Babcock, Bland, Carthorse, Dint, Ellsworth Beast Major.
I think it's very likely that the funny faces were myself and my colleagues.
Most of you, of course, didn't write nearly enough. Dint, your answer was unreadable. Put it away, Plectrum. If I see it once more this period, Plectrum, I shall have to tweak you. Don't sulk, boy, for God's sake. Has Matron seen those boils? Horrid little twerp.
I seem to remember making people laugh, but of course that was pre-adolescence. And I think once adolescence set in that I never really performed off stage or off screen ever again. It was only before the self-consciousness set in. I think I was quite sort of self-contained. Not, I hope, a loner, but sort of not really requiring the constant company of my friends in order to enjoy myself.
oh.
My interest in visual comedy was based on discovering a film by Jacques Tati called Monsieur Hulot's Holiday, which I discovered when I was in the sixth form at school because I was the projectionist. And myself and a friend were in charge of that operation, and it enabled us to sort of leaf through film catalogues and order whatever films came into our minds. It just struck a chord with me. I so admired it. It was a kind of an uncompromising comic attitude and setting that I really admired. And so but that was only a filmic experience which influenced me kind of subliminally.
Monsieur. Hein? Monsieur. Comment? Monsieur. Me permettez. Hulot.
It was something that I forgot about, really, for the 3 years I was at Newcastle University, from where I went to Oxford University. And it was there, really, that it sort of returned. My background and my natural inclinations were fairly northern. And suddenly I was in this very sort of cultured, more sort of southern environment. And, you know, and I was working with, you know, all my friends, if you like, were reading classics and English and French literature. I was the only one reading engineering science.
When I first met him, he was nervous. And he was odd. I mean, there was a lot of sort of nervousness about being around women generally, which, of course, is fantastically endearing.
Ah, Lorraine.
Morning, Robert.
What do you do at nights?
I beg your pardon?
Do you eat at night? or what?
As a rule, yes.
Aha! Yes. Yes. Well, yes, well, I do, actually. I quite often go to a pub on my way home. But tonight I thought I'd really splash out on something a lot better. Go somewhere really nice.
Would you like me to join you?
No, don't trouble yourself. No, it'll be, yes? Yes, would that be okay?
In his very first term at Oxford, Rowan had a fortuitous meeting with a student comedy writer.
I saw this little advert in a university newspaper saying we're thinking of getting a comedy review together, you know, meetings at University College at a certain time. So I thought I'd beetle along because I felt as though I had an interest. And Richard was there.
Yes, Rowan and I met at a tiny scriptwriters conference in a Don's room.
In the summer of 1976. And I remember he was very bright, very talkative, which I wasn't.
Because he was very quiet. He didn't say anything for the entire 2-hour meeting.
But he's kind of made up for whatever contribution I was lacking from me.
And then finally one day, we were asked whether we had anything we wanted to put into the review that we were going to do. And Rose stood up in the room and performed these 2 sketches that he'd worked out, which were replete with such flagrant genius. Unfortunately, it was the first time we heard him speak. They were completely wonderful.
The Oxford Playhouse provided a showcase where Rowan performed much of his early material, with Richard as the straight man.
At the centre of the Elizabethan world sits the king. Upon the character of the king depends the plot, and so there are many different kinds of king. The benign king. The benign king with a physical defect. The benign king with 2 physical defects. The mad king.
Somebody who saw one of these early shows was BBC producer John Lloyd.
It was not like any review that I had ever seen, partly because of Richard Curtis's genius. The lateral jumps it made in terms of subject matter. It would always just start, you know, and often very surreal and rather European, like sort of strange. He used to describe them as Czechoslovakian cartoons, where this little man would come on and be chased around the stage by a spotlight with the music of a clarinet playing. It didn't obey any of the rules of student sketch writing. It didn't appear to be like anything else. It wasn't like what we were all doing at the time as Monty Python sketches. And the shows usually took the form of something very visual, sort of mime thing, a famous mime with where he mimed to a sort of Beethoven piano sonata.
Another of Rowan's long-term collaborators is composer Howard Goodall.
He is very musical, and we've always done a lot of musical sketches on the stage show, which is probably why I've been more involved than musical directors normally are in a comedy show. He did one where he was a concert pianist playing Beethoven, he did one as a conductor, he did a AC/DC guitar mime, and he did a thing called drumming, which we worked on together.
Well, I was friendly with Richard Curtis, and he was in those days Rowan's straight man. In fact, he was, as I later became, the other person in Rowan's one-man show.
Good evening and welcome to the Boston University Huntington
There were a
Theatre.
number of different sketches, different characters, all of which had elements of what later became Mr. Bean. I can remember one when he was a sketch about someone on his first date.
The first crucial step is having arranged to pick up your date, not to look like a complete idiot when she opens the door. Best to look as though your attention has been momentarily distracted. But when you do notice her, it is vital to say how pretty she is looking straight away. But don't overdo it.
He is very, very careful about everything he does. He works out everything in advance. And it'll be the same performance every night. But it was much more like preparing a play. And I think in that regard, he is more like an actor than a comedian, that he'll work out, he'll spend, a long time working out the dynamics of a particular scene.
Once in the car, there are various ways of driving. If you drive like this, you might lose her respect. If you drive like this...
And there was a TV show called Canned Laughter, which he did very shortly after leaving Oxford. And there, if you look at the character, you can see how it's gradually forming.
Hi, Lorraine.
He ties you up a lot.
Oh, my God, look at the tide. Help! Help! Help!
Why do you think he does that joke?
Richard Curtis and I were writing a full stage review for Rowan with lots of different sketches, and we wrote a couple of silent ones for him, one of which was called Cheating, which I was particularly involved in, and, well, we co-wrote the whole show. And that later became a Mr. Bean sketch. It didn't change, really, at all. It's just that we didn't actually call it Mr. Bean at the time.
I think what he did is to take elements of those different characters and package them together. And that's, I think, probably how Mr. Bean was born.
You're all about 22. You're touring with one of the great comic geniuses of the century. And you're still 22, and you're 3 friends. So how do you handle that? Because obviously the minute Rowan walks on stage, he has 5,000 people or 3,000 people in the palm of his hand. And it's an extraordinary gift. And we don't really discuss it very much, but that's what's happening.
Hello. It's nice to see you all here. Now, as the more perceptive of you have probably realized by now, this is hell. And I am the devil. Good evening. But you can call me Toby, if you like. We try to keep things informal here, as well as infernal. That's just a little joke of mine. I tell it every time. Now, murderers. Murderers, over here, please. Thank you. Looters and pillagers, over here. Thieves, if you could join them. And lawyers. You're in that lot.
Villains are always more fun to play than good guys. That's a well-known fact. I enjoy characters who have a vindictiveness in them. I always have done it. In the end, it's just more fun.
I think the rest of us found it quite difficult to adjust to the fact that he was becoming very famous very quickly, and we were still who we were. And this was way before Richard had become a well-known writer in his own right, so I think there was quite a lot of adjustment to be done in terms of that. And I think, especially for Rowan, difficult for him to adjust as his friends were always wondering whether he was going to buy the meal or not.
The only thing in which Rowe was naughty during the stage show is he did have a lot of trouble describing it as anything but a one-man show.
I remember saying to him once, pointing at the poster which said Rowan Atkinson in his one-man show, and saying, don't you think that poster's slightly strange? And he said, oh, yes, that typeface should be in green and not yellow. So I thought, well, I won't push it.
John Lloyd asked if I wanted to join this team of people he was getting together to do a new topical, satirical comedy sketch show.
The BBC, who in those days were much more paternal than they are now, said to Rowan, it would be much better if you had some other people in the show, because then if you're good, you'll shine, and if you're not good, they'll support you, and it'll mean you don't have to do a quarter of the work.
So I was at this crossroads, really, and I had to choose between doing a show on my own or doing a show with 3 others. And there was no doubt in my mind which way to go.
And to the presence in his room, he said,
"What writest thou?" The vision raised its head,
and with a look made of all sweet accord, answered,
It was only rarely in Not the 9 O'Clock News that, you know, that my special interest in visual comedy was ever allowed to burst through.
The rest of you will watch a mime called And If There's Any Sniggering There'll Be Trouble, Alternative Car Park. I said... What do you think you're doing? What?
I'm the mime.
Well, why didn't you say so? Right, get on with the mime.
I am a mime. My body is my tool.
The ideas we had for visual characters were, you know, rather unfocused, let's say. But the man who bumped into the tree was one of those rare occasions when it sort of got through.
I can remember Richard Curtis and Rowan coming in very early, Not the 9 O'Clock News, and saying, we've got this great script, it's the best script we've ever written. And it consisted of, it says, Rowan is walking down the street and he sees the camera and then bumps into a lamppost. And I turned over the page expecting the great delivery of the line. I said, well, what's this? What's the joke? He said, well, it's really funny. I said, this isn't funny at all. It's hopeless. It doesn't work at all. And they said, well, can we do it? Please, please, please. Can we have a couple of hours with a camera? And I said, sure. They went off and shot it with the director. It came back, and it was absolutely brilliant. It's that shock that you've been working comedy for 5, 6, 7 years, and somebody comes along and says, there's another way of doing this. He has not had to compromise. He's done pretty much exactly what he wants to. The compromises he's made have generally been so as not to upset his mother, you know, not to say too many rude words because she might not like it.
I seek information about a wise woman.
The wise woman. The wise woman.
Yes, the wise woman.
It started off as being something completely different about bicycle thieves in North London, and over time it developed into a medieval sitcom. So how it went down that road, I don't know.
2 things, my lord, must ye know of the wise woman.
Yes?
First, she is a woman. And second, she is...
wise?
You do know her, then?
No, just a wild stab in the dark, which is incidentally what you'll be getting if you don't start being a bit more helpful.
I delighted in Blackadder in those very long, ornate things, you know, Baldric, that's the most disgusting thing I've seen.
Since Cardinal Wolsey got his knob out at Hampton Court and stood at the end of the passage pretending to be a door. Oh, shut up, Balders. You'd laugh at a Shakespeare comedy.
The Blackadders were very complicated by the end, it has to be said, because there were, you know, 6 or 7 people working in a room, all of whom were capable on their own of developing entire projects, attempting to squeeze all their creative energy into a 2-dimensional situation comedy.
Row, row, row your punt gently down the stream. Belts off, trousers down, isn't life a scream?
Fabulous. University education. You can't beat it.
Bravo. Now, what have we here? Name?
Baldrick, sir.
Oh, tally-ho, yibbity-dap and zing-zang spillet. Looking forward to bullying off for the final chucker?
Answer the General, Baldrick.
I can't answer him, sir. I don't know what he's talking about.
Are you looking forward to the big push?
No, sir, I'm absolutely terrified.
The healthy humour of the honest Tommy. Don't worry, my boy. If you should falter, remember that Captain Darling and I are behind you.
About 35 miles behind.
There are two Rowan characters, principally. There's the absolute bastard, who's the schoolmaster character, or Blackadder. And there's the funny, wibbly little man. Who's actually an utter bastard as well. They're both bastards.
In 1989, after the consideration of a long list of vegetables, the funny little wibbly man was given the name of Mr. Bean. Quite unexpectedly, this unfashionably silent comedy was an immediate hit. One of the secrets of the Bean visual humour is the careful and highly detailed preparation that goes into filming.
I'm not at all sure that I enjoy acting, because I just find it so worrying and difficult. I enjoy planning things, I enjoy thinking about things and, you know, contributing to the creation of things.
The window down, or a head emerging if you wanted a nice entrance for yourself, trying to get out of the train.
Almost without seeing the window come down, just the sense of the grappling hand, of the hand coming out, you know, where's the knob?
Each and every Bean moment is meticulously choreographed.
I don't know. I suppose I'd seen that he arrives in this shot already sort of faltering, you know what I mean? Though we just get the sense, or at least not necessarily that he's acknowledged his loss of ticket in the opening shot, but he could be looking for it. And I'm still fairly confident.
Yeah.
And then when we pick him up profile, that he's sort of starting to falter, and there's a little bit more of the hoop.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell, I haven't got anything.
If this angle works best, that's lovely. The change of direction, if you see what I mean. I'm always aware that of any 10 suggestions I might come up with, 3 or 4 or 5, maybe along the same lines that he's thinking. But I'm always unnerved by the fact that on almost all the other occasions, he's so far ahead that I then have to choose between, you know, open-mouthed admiration or a very quick recovery, where I say, yes, I felt something similar would probably do very well, and then scuttle off and try and get to the cameraman before he does.
This bag could do with being 6 inches longer.
6 inches longer?
Yeah, I think so.
How fast can you go?
One corner of the bag would go through and get stuck, and then and then he'd come back, and then think, well, there's only one way out, and that is to go over the top.
The co-writer, Robin Driscoll, collaborates with Rowan on the improvisation of Bean.
Might be nice tea bag, you know, if you do a bit of a caterpillar and you get up and you think, well, freedom's inside.
One of the reasons why Mr. Bean has gone on is because actually the process of creating him is quite a lot of fun. You think of a basic situation, just as you're walking around, you're in a barber shop, and you think, yes, this is a place where people don't talk to each other. And then you sit down at the computer and you think through, as you would with a normal piece of writing, 5 things that might happen.
Sorry, look, can I just leave Jamie here with you for a moment? I mean, I've left my purse in the shop back there. But just give him a good haircut, will you? Be good, Jamie.
Sorry to stop, but I have a feeling that if this happened, that Bean would, or at least some, normal people would say, hang on a minute, he'll be back in a second and I'm first. You know what I mean? But they'd be, because in the end, the real barber's only 10 yards that way. So he would, I'm not sure he would immediately presume to take on the role of a barber unless he had an extra kick. I mean, maybe actually Jamie says something like, come on.
Would Jamie take his own cap off and look at Bean so that we see you? Yeah, like that expectant thing.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of moment between the two of you.
Yes. Yes, that might be quite good. Yeah. Yes, that's quite. Yes, that's quite good. Yes, exactly. Good. Yeah, that might be all I need.
Actually, you have to act it out, because one of the things Mr. Bean is meant to have is not a lot of props. So, like, I remember when I was doing the Royal lineup one, I put on a jacket, put on a tie, put some handkerchiefs in my pocket, stood in the middle of my bedroom and said, right, what do I do now if I want to try and make people laugh?
Bean-o-mania.
Mademoiselle, here is Mr. Bean.
O como una aludía y se llama eso, Mr. Bean.
Nous verrons bientôt sur France 3 Mr. Bean. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Bean.
Uninhibited by a language barrier, Mr. Bean has become a truly global success and is now watched in over 100 countries around the world. The character was always meant to be international. The inspiration came to Rowan while on holiday in Italy.
I just remember strolling through Venice and seeing all these souvenir stores selling posters of George Michael and Phil Collins and Duran Duran, I think, at the time, and thinking, well, there you go, Englishmen all, but hordes of Norwegians are very keen to buy posters of them. Why does comedy not have an international dimension? Well, I certainly never wanted pop star recognition and accoutrements. In fact, we did experience it once in Amsterdam when I went as Mr. Bean to sign some videos. And there was this kind of, near riot, and I had to be smuggled out of the back of the store. It's a most peculiar thing, when you get a sense of that, what it must be like to be Madonna. But I have to say, it was an experience that I didn't enjoy at all.
But despite this extraordinary success, Rowan was keen for a new challenge. Bean the movie offered a whole new set of possibilities, and in 1996 it went into production.
Reset.
Ludicrously nominated by the National Gallery as their representative, the funny little wibbly man finally arrives in America.
He gets a bit of a warm reception at Los Angeles airport and immediately gets on the wrong side of the police.
Police! Everyone on the floor, now!
Not you, sweetie.
The structure and narrative of a film, if you're aiming to make it any kind of success, has got to be so different to that of a half-hour television program. It is a huge leap to make. And if we were going to go through all the effort and torment of making that leap and trying to make it work, that it seemed logical that we should try to be doing something different with the character. Which goes back again to this idea of trying to explore more facets of the character than we had been able to do on television.
Just because it's a film, we mustn't allow ourselves not to put in straight, funny visual sequences. And so we've had about 8 days of rehearsal where we go into a rehearsal room and the three of us just fool around with basic ideas. Mr. Bean on the plane, Mr. Bean with a pair of wet trousers, Mr. Bean in bed, you know, and stuff like that. And a lot of the funniest things, indeed, in the final movie, well, I suspect come from those genuinely amusing occasions rather than sitting alone in one's room typing speeches for people.
Well done, Hugo. That's fantastic. Lean away from him.
Rowan has always been more comfortable working within a close circle of collaborators, and Mel Smith, director of The Tall Guy and co-star of Not the 9 O'Clock News, was an obvious choice to direct the Bean movie.
In the TV programmes, there are no real consequences to what he does. I mean, there are consequences in the short term, within the 10-minute sketch or whatever it may be, to the people who are in the vicinity. The interesting thing about doing a film is that there are real consequences in our story, and what he does actually impacts on other people.
He's a genius, huh?
That's what they tell me.
Well, it looks like a fruitcake to me.
It's so simple, you know, it is so accessible. It's so manifest, really, to anybody. Some people who prefer a bit more intellectual content are probably disappointed by most Mr. Bean sketches and may therefore be disappointed by the film. But that doesn't worry me so much. I enjoy the simplicity of him and his comedy, and the sort of universal identification, I think, that people throughout the world seem to feel for the character.
Wake up. I don't know what to say about Bean. He's clearly a Force 10 disaster area, but God, help me. I like him.
I mean, quite a lot of Bean is very extreme, but quite a lot of the stuff that I like the most is when he's just sitting in a chair in a dentist's waiting room with sort of nothing much going on, and just watching him and how he bides his time always amuses me greatly.
I think Mr. Bean is Rowan Atkinson. I mean, I've sort of seen him be that person in his own life. So I think, you know, they're not that far apart.
If you're going to present a situation visually, I think the character or the personality that you create in order to present visual comedy comes from very deep within you. It's very identifiable as a part of you, which leads to my theory that actually that you have only one truly good and convincing visual comedy character within you. Nobody has more than one.
Oh.
I sometimes speculate about where I'd be now if I hadn't, decided to take that plunge and write to those agents and take it seriously, and whether I'd be, in some small research laboratory near Swindon, doing amateur dramatics every 3 months. And I'm sure I would be enjoying it greatly.
Coming to home video. A&E Home Video brings you Mr. Bean as you've never seen him before. Mr. Bean, the animated series. He's the world's most lovable walking disaster in an all-new series of animated adventures. He's funnier. He's wittier. He's never been more animated. From Tiger Aspect Productions, producers of the live-action Mr. Bean series, and featuring Rowan Atkinson in the role he was drawn to play. In 26 action-packed half-hour episodes, featuring 52 wacky new stories. Mr. Bean, the animated series. It's Mr. Bean like you've never seen. Coming soon from A&E Home Video.
I think it's the 1830, which is probably the best one to get back to this. Ooh. Just bring it back. There. This is...
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Blind Days! And here is your host, Mr.
Oh, and they don't get paid a penny extra. Hello and welcome to Blind Date. You know, I read this survey the other day. I did. Now, apparently, it's now true that 2 out of every 3 people wish that the third one would go away. Yes, hey, nonny, nonny. And here are three fellas all hoping to go away on a blind date. Here they are. Well, all the ladies out there think you're all very fanciable fellas. And let's start with you, number one. What's your name and where do you come from?
Hello, Scylla. I'm Rob, and I'm from Kentish Town in London.
Moving on to you, number two.
Number two. Sorry. I'm number three.
It's you, number two. What's your name and where do you come from?
Well, Scylla, my name's Roddy, and I'm from Edinburgh.
Now, moving on to our third contestant. What's your name and where do you come from? Oh, hey. A lot of fans out there, number three. What's your name and where do you come from?
I'm number three, and I've come from the dressing room.
Bless his little cotton socks. No, but what's your name? Tell us your name.
Oh, Bean.
And your first name?
Mister.
And what do you do for a living?
Well, I don't go around asking people personal questions.
Not too personal. Who is your ideal lady?
Oh, well, Shirley Bassey, obviously. Goldfinger!
Shirley, it's a great friend of mine. She's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yes. Diamonds are forever.
Well, I wish all three of you a Laura look. In fact, a Laura look, number three. I shall see you all in a mo, all right? See you later. So which one of those boys will be lucky tonight? Well, it's all up to one girl. She's absolutely lovely. She's from Manchester, and her name is Tracy. Come in, Tracy. And may I say, Tracy, they're all showing their appreciation out there for you, Tracy. Now, you are a beauty therapist, aren't you, love?
That's right, Scylla.
Now, you've got your questions there, so fire away, Trace.
Right. I'm a girl who likes a good dance. If you could have just one dance with me, what would it be? And that's number one.
Well, Tracy, I'd have a little trouble deciding between a lambada and a tango. But in the end, I think we just go for a little horizontal dancing instead.
That's disgusting.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, it's nice, yes.
What about you, number two? What kind of dance would you do with me?
Well, Tracy, I'm a bit of a romantic, so I think I'd take you in my arms and we'd waltz off into the sunset forever.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Oh, it does, doesn't
Sounds
it?
nice. What about you, number three? What kind of dance would you do with me?
Oh, I can't dance.
Oh, yes, come on, number three. We want to see him dance, don't we, gang?
Oh, well, I don't know, really. I mean, I just sort of...
Let's make your mind up time now, you know. Yes, it is make your mind up time. And don't do it just yet, because here's our Graham with that quick recap.
So, who's it going to be, Tracy? Will it be number one, who makes a business out of making beds? and whose horizons are distinctly horizontal.
In other words, he's a pervert.
Or will you choose number 2, the Scottish lad who's an expert in languages and wouldn't say non to a little French kissing? Or will it be number 3, he keeps his business secret, but he might just make you an offer you can't refuse? The decision, is yours.
I know who my favourite is. Who's your favourite? Don't tell us. Who are you going to go for tonight, Tracy?
Well, Scylla, I think I was daring coming on Blind Date in the first place.
I think you were desperate.
Well, I think that I might go for number 3.
But what about the 2 that she turned down? Oh, let's have a look at them. Oh, it's a shame. First of all, you turned down our Rob, and he was all the way from Kentish Town. Come in, Rob. Oh, yes, gorgeous.
Yeah, no, never mind.
Oh, what a shame, what a shame. Having second thoughts, Tracy?
Oh, bit.
A bit. Sure, well, never mind. What about number 2? Roddy from Edinburgh. Come in, Roddy. Oh, Roddy. Oh, au revoir, Roddy. Oh, mon petit Chucky Earth. What a shame. But this is it. This is the exciting bit, Tracy.
Okay.
You are going out on your blind date. Do you think you made the right choice? Fingers crossed. May I say, I think you're a very brave one. I say this every week.
Okay.
You will not be disappointed. Because here's your blind date for this evening. Number 3, here he is from his dressing room, and his name is Mr. Bean. Come in, Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
Okay, then which one are you going to do the choosing? Where you're going
me,
on?
please.
Oh, okay. Okay. Oh, they're all.
Some of the cuts on.
Take them along.
Oh, no, don't go there. This is it. A night in an English country hotel.
Is that the one you're going to go for?
Yeah, yes, it's on.
Are you happy with that, Tracy? A night in an English country hotel. I mean, they're all lovely dates. Do you like champagne?
No.
But I'm sure you'll have a good time. Oh, Tracy. Please, try and have a good time. All I ask, will you come back shortly and tell us how you got on?
Oh, I certainly will, Miss Black.
Oh, isn't that lovely? Let's hear a big hand for the lovely Tracy and the marvellous Mr. Bean. See you later. Have a look at our romantic couple and spending their romantic weekend at a lovely English country house hotel.
Cheers. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, I don't think I'm going to catch anything.
Well, I'm quite a catch.
Oh, I've got something. Oh,
Mine's bigger than yours.
I'm really looking forward to dinner. Dead hungry.
Oh, so am I. Nice music.
Sorry.
Good night.
Good night.
Got the camera. Would you mind taking it to myself?
Yes!
No, harder, harder. We had a marvelous time.
Well, Tracy and Mr. Bean, you spent your blind date in the heart of the English countryside. But at the end of your date, did you win each other's hearts? Let's find out.
When I first saw him, I thought, oh, she is a little unusual looking.
When I first saw her, I thought, blimey, she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
He didn't say much. He didn't have much conversation. He had a bit of a tendency to keep himself to himself.
Did you say something?
When he did come down to dinner, I thought it was a pity that he had his shirt sticking out of his flies.
And when I came down to dinner, I could see that look in her eyes. Only one thing, you know.
It was the worst weekend of my life.
Best weekend of my life.
Of course I'll never see him again. It was a total disaster.
Oh, dear, I don't know what to say. I am so terribly, terribly sorry. Oh.
Similar.
your tickets, please, sir. Thank you. I'm afraid your seat's over there. You'll have to move. Come on.
Ladies and gentlemen, Torville